let's get into our predictions for this game. Let us know in chat. Do you think the Bills are going to win Super Wild Card Weekend? The Bills are undefeated on Super Wild Card Weekend, 3 in a row. Kind of unfair that the Bills have been the 2 seed now twice in the last 3 years. And the last 3 years are the first 3 years that the 2 seed has not gotten a bye. So maybe the Bills will be the 1 seed eventually. The Bills are started this week as a 10-point favorite. It's down to basically 9.5. I do think that's more so having to do with the weather than anything matchup related. We've talked a lot about the Steelers defense. We talked about their offense. We talked about the Bills injuries. We talked a lot about weather. Let's get some predictions in from chat. Costa says Bills 24-10. Luca, the 7 seed Steelers. I had an energy drink earlier, and my stomach is like, Luca. 7 seed Steelers, 2 seed Bills. Do the Bills stay undefeated on Super Wild Card Weekend, and do 2 seeds in the NFL since this new format stay undefeated with the Buffalo Bills beating the Steelers?
Shout out the Super Wildcard Weekend for the Bills being a 2 seed twice and playing the 7 seed. And neither of those games, if we recall, were anywhat comfortable. Phillip Rivers in his last game was very close to a Hail Mary, ironically enough, in that season in particular, from actually winning the game. And then, of course, last year with Luke Skywalker Thompson almost leading a comeback in Buffalo for the Miami Dolphins. It's one of those things where I look at this game and it's almost like I can definitely see an uncomfortable situation, especially if weather is just cataclysmic, we'll call it. It's just an absolute crap show. It's a whiteout everywhere. It's a nostalgic look back on Shady against the Colts, whatever the situation might be. I'm hoping that won't necessarily be the severe case, but we shall see. I will say, though, it's very, very, very difficult for me to realistically sit back and think there is a successful avenue for the Steelers to keep this one close going into the very late stretch of the game. What I will say as a caveat for that, I told you off air, and I just, the thought and idea cannot get out of my head. The one thing and the one place that we have seen a little bit of a struggle from the Bills is early on in games in those scripted moments and kind of where teams can game plan going into it, how they want to attack early to try to start out on the front foot, especially offensively. It does seem like we win coin tosses a decent amount. I'm going to go under the assumption we win the coin toss in this one, in this scenario. If that world happens, I can see something very similar to like the Raiders game early on. Obviously, weather was not a factor in that game, but just game script wise, where the Steelers do find a little bit of success. They figured out something on film that they planned for, and they attack the Bills to methodically move down the field, end up in a touchdown. The Bills then cannot respond, but then all of a sudden a turnover happens, the Bills score, and it feels like at that point in time, the game is flipped back for the Bills, and you're not looking back at that point on, and the Bills somewhat win comfortably. That idea of this game being similar to something like that is just something I have not been able to get out of my head all week. So therefore, my prediction for this game is just going to be, it might not be as high scoring for the Bills' sake as that Raiders game was, but ultimately I see something like a 27-13 Bills win. That's just where my head goes. It's just ultimately what I see. Maybe even something like 27-17, where a late Steelers touchdown kind of puts it at that 10 spot. And if you're a betting person with this spread, you're going to really hate that depending on what side you're on, since it did move to 9.5. But overall, that's just one of those things where I cannot get that idea of my head, so I'm just going to leave it where it is. I'm going to go ahead with the score prediction of 27-17. I think that is just what I've had early on, and it seems to have just felt right regardless of the weather situation and everything involved.
All right, so Luca has the Bills winning. Will I follow suit? I will. I think you want to be concerned about the weather. I hear you. I think the Bills have the best answer to weather football there is in the sport in Josh Allen. He can run as a quarterback. He can throw it through the wind as well as anybody. If the passing game is neutralized, he will be the last quarterback in the league to be neutralized. Guys like Mason Rudolph will be affected far before someone like Josh Allen. So if the weather gets to the point where both quarterbacks are neutralized, that's unfortunate, but they still have his legs they can account for, which is a counterpunch the Steelers. I do think James Cook is going to be a big story in this game. Playoff Lenny. You don't get nicknamed Playoff Lenny for coming up small in playoff games. I think he's somebody to keep an eye on in this game. I expect the Steelers to try to blitz the Bills in early passing down situations. And I do think Leonard Fournette's ability to block is going to be important. Ty Johnson is somebody I think could factor into the offense. We mentioned Kincaid, Shakir, Diggs. I am going to have a weird score here, but the reasoning is this. I think this could be the kind of game where both teams feel better about going for two than kicking extra points in wind and bad conditions. I'm going to take the Bills 25-11. And that's basically, what did I have here? 22 points. So that's a touchdown with two touchdowns with a 2-point conversion made, one touchdown with a 2-point conversion missed, and somehow, some way, Tyler Bass puts a field goal through at some point in time and impresses us all, and maybe like right before halftime. And then I think the Steelers also get a field goal at some point and get a touchdown with a 2-point conversion. I do think the Steelers' running game is going to be effective. I do expect Mason Rudolph to potentially make some plays early in this game. Luca likes to talk a lot about the script. The Bills have not been great in the scripted situations. If the weather allows for it, I think you could see a situation where the Steelers get some short passes, but the Steelers are kind of a kill you by paper cut team. And good luck putting together those long drives. I don't expect the Steelers to put up a lot of points in this game. As far as the Bills go, nothing cheap, nothing deep. Don't give up the big play to George Pickens. Don't give up the long run to Najee Harris or Jalen Warren. Don't give up the blocked punt that we saw 2 years ago on opening day. Make the Steelers come in here and beat you. Don't kill yourself with penalties. Don't kill yourself with turnovers. And I think that the Bills are the decisively better team. And I will also tell you this. There's a lot of concern about the Bills playing down to opponents. And there's a lot of concern about, do the Bills get lazy in certain games? I think I have a pretty good feel on this team. I think this Bills team is well aware of the egg they laid last year in the playoffs. And we all spent the entire offseason coming up with excuses. They were tired. They were worn out from the DeMar Hamlin situation. They were worn out from traveling multiple times in bad weather situations. They were worn out from an early bye. And I think the fact that this game is in bad weather conditions and they spent all offseason having to hear people like Eli Apple talk about how soft they were in those conditions. I have a feeling, and I didn't predict it. I predicted 25-11. I think there is a chance that the Bills come out and just blow the doors off the Steelers and take out a year's worth of frustration and put the absolute stamp on this game of, we are here, we are ready to fight, and you better recognize who we are. And if that happens, I think you're looking at something similar to what happened in New England a couple years ago in the playoffs, where it's obvious from the get-go who the better team is, and the Bills just take out an unbelievable amount of frustration on this Steelers team that doesn't belong on the same field with them. And I think there is an absolute world where the Bills do that. And I've kind of had that feeling all week, and I've been kind of wanting to sit on it. And the weather kind of dampens that, no pun intended. But I do think that is certainly within these Bills, as I think you could absolutely see the best version of them. And holy cow, Luca, if the Bills come out in these weather conditions that are going to, we had a comment up here earlier, and I think it was a good comment. Why do people say, here we go, it's from Dave, I hate how people think we have home field advantage in this weather. Dave, you're right. That has not played out historically. If the Bills come out in this weather against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are the ultimate blue-collar team, and just dominate them, out physical them, blow their doors off, and Josh Allen looks weatherproof, and the Bills go on to win like 44-6, what's the league going to say now? The Bills rode a 5-game winning streak into the playoffs. They just dominated in awful weather. They are going to become the betting favorite to win the entire thing. I think that's within the realistic outcomes of this game. It's not my prediction. I would not be stunned at all if it happens, Luca.
That's fair. I would say, like, it's not surprising if they were to, and this is just the only caveat I would say is, if it's truly a lake effect game, then I will be like, I would be stunned if it is, because that is just something I wouldn't ever expect any team, no matter how good you are, the greatest show on turf, even if it's indoors and still the lake effect they're dealing with, no one's going to handle that very well. Barring that outcome, if it's still just, wind combined with we'll call not blizzard lake effect, snow level kind of situation, I can still see it where Josh Allen is that weatherproof guy. It would not surprise me. It's not something I would expect. Like you said, it's not something we will sit here and predict. Seems irresponsible almost in a way to do so. It's just not realistic, but it should not surprise anyone. And boy, would it be fun if that were to be something that they truly did kind of bottle up for this week. They see what's in front of them. They see the opportunity that it could be to then present to the world, that it's like last year was last year. This is this year. We're a very different squad. We have a different mentality in house. We have a different mindset on what we're trying to achieve this go around, that we are ready to go, even with this kind of situation in front of us. So yeah, it's a good shout. It's a good kind of thing to even bring out there to say, hey, this is still something that maybe could happen.